Live at the door. All right. All right, you're good. You go inside. Good morning. I have a pretty cool guy. I have Jimmy Montague, aka James Palco, aka Jimmy Montague from literally Jimmy Montague, Taking Meds and Pretty Rude. And you've been doing so much other stuff. Welcome to the fucking podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just to get things started, you have kind of a it's kind of hard to pin you down whenever you are like you're doing just so much stuff, and like looking you up, like there's just so many things that you're involved in. Like your Instagram makes it seem like that you never sleep.
It feels that way more often than not. Yeah.
So you're based out of where?
I live in Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Okay, hell yeah. So New York is kind of like the home base for like the last how many years?
So I was born here, and then I grew up in Connecticut, and then I bopped around New England for, most of my adult life. Lived in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Jersey, back in New York, back in Connecticut, back, just all over New England.
I love that.
But I lived in Ridgewood for about 3 years, and now I'm back in Brooklyn, and this is a little over a year now. So, this has always sort of felt like home base.
That's fucking awesome. And that kind of makes sense with like, you've been making like rock music for like a really long time. Like I talked to a lot of people doing like DIY, emo, talking to some people in rap, but like it's been a long time since you give me a chance to listen to this Pretty Rude record. This is like a rock record. And there's when I was listening to it, there were like two bands that like this reminded me of, or like reminded me of like listening to it, and it was Fastball. Fastball and OK Go, like specifically their first record. Like,
wow, interesting. Two bands that I really have no knowledge of to like any deep extent.
It's so funny, just like, so like when I was growing up, like, I'm 37, so like the late 90s, early 2000s was like such a formative time for me. And like when those bands came out, they were like these rock bands that had almost like this Beatles thing, but it was just like still heavy guitars, but lots of great, like the compositional stuff on your end is so cool, doing lots of cool half steps, breaking out of key. It's also soulful. Like there's still like some almost Alabama shakes with it. Like there's so much stuff going on, like that, just like the constellation of stuff that I was seeing.
Sure. I'm definitely a maximalist when it comes to arranging, and I've tried to I've like made attempts to stop doing that to see if I could do simpler music, but it just ends up working its way back in. So I think it's just time to own it. I like big arrangements.
I think, like, specifically with this record, there's lots of moments of like breath. Like this isn't just huge the whole time through. Like, so you're playing with, lots of great space, lots of like interesting, like, okay, actually, when it comes to you and your writing style, let's kind of walk through that. Like, is it acoustic first, or are you like on piano and then it just kind of explodes from there?
For Pretty Rude, it was mostly an acoustic guitar. For my own stuff, I guess it just depends on the type of song I'm writing. Like, it could be piano, it could be acoustic guitar. Sometimes it'll start on acoustic guitar and I'll move it to piano. Like, it kind of doesn't matter, but definitely with the Pretty Rude stuff, it was all on either acoustic or just like an unplugged electric guitar,
I love that. It makes sense, because this is like definitely just like a big rock record. When you were writing this, what were you like listening to to like, or is this kind of like the idea was to do like this really cool soulful like big rock record?
I was listening to a lot of the Cars. At first, in my mind, I had every intention of like, I get really hung up on form. I get really hung up on like track listing and like just structure. So I had taken that Cars record, the self-titled, and I was like, I wonder if I could just completely replicate this track by track as like more of like a project for me.
Sure.
I didn't end up doing that, but like in my head, that was like kind of where I was approaching it. I was like, let's look at these like really flawless records, like the Car self-titled. I was listening to a lot of Fountains of Wayne.
Oh yeah.
Just taking these things and being like, what about this is actually what is like calling to me as why this is so good. And if I break it down and sort of dissect it, like, are there forms that I'm missing, like structures of songs that I think are more interesting, like rather than verse, chorus, bridge out, like doing something like verse, chorus, blank chorus with a solo, back to chorus 2, verse on the way out, like looking at different sort of ways that you can put together a song. I was just doing a lot of dissecting of, pretty, famous records, Cars records, Fountains of Wayne. Weezer's obviously in there as a big influence. The Rentals, my roommate Paul is super into the Rentals, and sat around listening to a bunch of those. I don't know, just a lot of studying, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like when people are writing records, artists tend to like hyper focus on certain parts where they want to experiment. Like, so the focus on form, I think, is really funny because it's like there are only so many ways. Well, I guess there's kind of an infinite amount of ways to like, structure your songs, and so like using that as your focal point, that makes a lot of sense because this record is like, it's all over the place, but it's fun. It feels exciting whenever these new parts come in. You're really playing with a lot of stuff. Now, like when you're like, what would you say is the thing you wanted to like convey with these new forms?
Just like, it feels natural, but it does stuff that you don't expect, like, they're still pretty traditional songs. I wanted to go out of my way to write a lot of choruses because I in the past, I have played in more punk tinged bands where like the chorus doesn't matter. It might as well be like 7 verses,
Totally.
Or like really wordy, like I like wordy lyrical bands if they're good. And, those bands could do all verses and I wouldn't mind because what they're saying is really great, but there's no catchy chorus, But I've been playing in a lot of bands like that for a while. So, me and the other musicians that I've been playing with were just like, man, I'm fucking exhausted. I want to hear a good chorus. Just give me the fucking chorus. So approaching it like that was fun for a more traditional sense, but it was still like, how can I take these tunes, put them in a new light so it feels exciting? And I think like when you're starting out writing, it's a lot of stealing chord progressions, and that like is what feels, you hear a song and you're like, why is this so good? And then you're like, okay, it's this chord progression. And then you take it and you write a bunch of songs, and that's how you start out. And then I feel like the next step, at least for me, was like, okay, what about this song is actually good? It's the feel. So I'm going to start stealing the tempos of these songs instead of the chord progressions. And so then I, spent the last couple of years stealing tempos from these grooves that I really liked. And now I feel like I'm in the point where I'm like, well, what's exciting to me now? It's the form. It's like where they decide to, like, why does this fade out work? Why does this bridge here work? If it's only a 2-bar thing with an instrumental little hook in there, like, why is that even in there? That's really interesting. And like listening to a lot of music and sort of pulling it apart structurally rather than musically has been at least interesting to me for the last couple of years.
I think that's kind of like, do you come from like a music theory background?
Kind of. So I played orchestra growing up. I played viola from 3rd grade through college, and I took some theory classes in college and late high school, but the kids that I was playing with were all jazz band kids, and those kids were like deep into theory. And most of my shit comes from like trying to impress my friends or just trying to hang, these kids can play. They're all very good players. They played on, like, I ended up hiring a bunch of them for my records, like my solo records and stuff. And I mean, so much of that probably just comes from trying to keep up with those kids.
Yeah, that music theory stuff is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. It's great. It's a way. I mean, some people, like, I see a lot of people talk about it in a way where they're like, it feels limiting. But if anything, it feels like a really easy way to break out of monotony. Yeah. Especially if you're still learning. I mean, you're always still learning. Like, I don't know. I just always felt like it was best for me to be the worst person in a room.
That's fascinating as hell, because it's like, you walking in with all these people that like know so much, you get to like, kind of absorb easier. You feel like, do you feel like you're more porous when you're around like more talented people?
I mean, like, when I bring in musicians or when I work with musicians, it's like, I'm not learning anything if I'm the best one in the room. So totally. I like to just make sure that I'm maybe not the worst, but
like, there's got to be like a good balance.
Sure, yeah, but like, it's only beneficial if you're like learning something. So even from an early age, even before like music theory, I was definitely putting myself in places with kids who I thought were very good, so that I could watch.
Would you say that you found yourself like having these moments of like bravery, wanting to like be involved with these incredible, talented musicians, where like that's what you were looking for?
I mean, I might be a little generous to call it bravery, but I mean, it's just like these kids. I lucked out, and my public school had a very good music program for a stretch of years, and we owe it a lot to some of our instructors and teachers who just gave a shit for that stretch of years, I guess. But it was just like, these were my friends growing up, kids I still know, kids I still talk to, 20 years into this, and just a good time. So, I mean, it was like, it wasn't so much like, oh, I got to prove myself to these kids. It was just like, these are the kids that I want to be around, and these are the kids writing music that I like. So I want to put myself in that room.
That's fucking awesome. How did you know that these were the people that like, well, how did you know that this is the stuff that you even wanted to write? Like, what is the attraction to this style?
I mean, that's changed over the years for sure. Just by nature of the bands that I've played in. When I was younger, in my 20s, I wanted to be in emo bands, and I was, in a handful of emo bands. And then as I got older, I was just like, the music that I listened to as a kid growing up, like classic rock, soul, and R&B, and just, indie-based rock and big instrumentation stuff. Like, a story I tell all the time is like, deep into like the emo phase of it or whatever, when I was in my 20s, I had a roommate show me that Andy Schaaf record, and I was like, oh, I didn't even realize people were allowed to still be making this kind of music. This is what I would much rather be doing. This is what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't think it would be cool. As 24-year-old, I was like, whatever. But
that's funny.
So then, I guess I've always wanted to make this sort of like pop tinged music. It's like kind of what I've always sort of listened to. A lot of Beatles, a lot of classic rock, a lot of big, alt rock, big chorus stuff,
Yeah, I love that. It's like very interesting to see like what people find, the sine wave of like exploring, stuff, late teens, early 20s, and then like what you come back to, and like the gravity towards those things. It always comes back to the stuff that you love, like when you were a kid. I'm excited to see like what I come back to when like right now I'm in my emo band stuff, which is my like sine wave from when I was like in my teens. So I'm like, maybe I'll get back into the indie stuff that I was into, or like post rock stuff when I was in my 20s. Like, it's interesting to see where it all comes back. Do you see yourself going back into those things, or sorry?
I'm already there. I mean, like I went back there a few years ago and just was like, fuck it, this is where I would much rather be. I mean, like, as a kid, I was obsessed with the Beatles and with the Jackson 5 and like these like super upbeat, you know, my mom loves Earth, Wind and Fire, Simon and Garfunkel, all this stuff. Like, that's just what I actually like. I've played in punk bands. I like the punk thing. I like doing the rock thing. You know, it's all very fun. But when I go to like grab music on my own, it's a lot of, you know, just older, more classic music, I guess.
Is there any, New York is kind of known for its like, not only the punk thing, it's known for just like rock. It's known for music as well as it being like this, you know, one of the largest cities in the whole world. The culture there is nuts. What do you think like New York brings into your music as well?
It's interesting. I guess when I first moved back here and I was living here and I was writing a lot more, it was just a sense of self that I didn't get in other places. Like there's something about it here where you can be by yourself, you can be in your own head, but you're still surrounded by people. So you're always taking things in. You're just constantly around. What's the word I'm looking for? Just input. It's input all the time. It's just input. Like even the trip to the grocery store is input. So like you're surrounded by so much that when you do go home or to your apartment or to a practice space or whatever, then you have so much more to draw from. You've just been seeing stuff and thinking all day long because you're just taking in so much. But musically, I don't know. I feel like I'm just a workaholic in general. I've always sort of been that way. So it doesn't really feel like I have to like compete or that there's this competitive edge here that's different from anywhere else. Like I think no matter where I would be just working. But
no, totally. And like there's something about like, again, the way that kind of the outside world perceives you as like, the way that you and I are just meeting right now, but the way that I know of you is, through Taking Meds and the Instagram and Pretty Rude and your solo stuff. It's like again, like you never sleep. There's just so much stuff just kind of like happening in your life. Being in studios, like walk me through kind of like your schedule, like because I feel like it's either very intense or it's very like, you just kind of follow your gut and you just don't want to go home.
It's definitely a lot of, I can't really sit still. Just like as on a personal side of things, like if I am sitting and I have too much time on my hand, I really just start to spiral thinking wise, just too much cyclical thinking. So I try to fill my day up with as much as possible. I work at a theater on Houston Street, and that is like my part-time job that I work.
I was going to ask you about that actually because of your tweet, because you had mentioned that you were working at a movie theater and you'll always be working like shitty, bad jobs for the rest of your life.
Well, that's how you commit tax fraud. So
that's what I'm talking about.
You keep a W-2 on the side. Yeah. Always keep a W-2 on the side.
That's perfect.
So I've always had food service jobs, restaurant jobs, bar jobs, these crappy things that you can sort of come and go into as you go, and always part-time so that if something comes up, I can take it off and go do what needs to be done. But I work part-time at this theater in Manhattan, and then I work, I help Billy out at the studio called Two Worlds in Queens.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So my day is pretty split between that. I will drive over there if there's a band in. shoot for a couple hours, take photos of the bands, document, keep tabs on, what's being done in the studio, try to also clean and rewire and help maintenance, stuff like that. And then
like your Idle Heinz thing is real.
Yeah. And so, I just, I gotta be doing something. And then I just drive back and go to work. And then I come back here and I either, like right now I'm prepping for, 3 months of touring coming up, and I just have too much shit to do,
So is that 3 months going to be back to back to back, or is it 3 months like, in between some stuff?
I leave next week for 2 weeks for a solo tour with Pet Symmetry and Pony. And that's about 2 weeks. I get a couple days off where I'll probably just be here doing laundry. And then I drive up to Rochester to start rehearsals. And I'm playing guitar in Carpool. And we're going on a tour with Heart Attack Man for about 7 weeks. Yeah,
I saw that tour. I didn't know you were playing with them. That's so sick.
Yeah, it's a long one.
Is the Venn diagram of New York pop? You're like a pop rock band, and then emo bands, everyone, specifically the Billy Menino
sure,
focal point. Would you say that Two Worlds is kind of the hub with everything else?
I mean, definitely in my experience in New York, it seems like the emo tinged community has been working with Billy for a number of years now. Mm-hmm. He's been working with Oso Oso and all these groups that come and want that sort of world, which it's a great environment for that. And he does a great job of nurturing these bands and sort of like a step on their way. And it's really cool to be this is a new endeavor for me the last year or so of working with Billy. And it's been, really great. It's a great community over there. It's nice to have that ecosystem, constantly coming in. We've had so many bands in the last year that I've gotten to photograph in the studio. It's been really fun meeting them. It's a world that I was in more in 2016, 17 than I am now. But it's still and these still some good bands, still totally. Great music.
It seems like when it comes to people, everyone in Carpool and Billy Menino, and there's just this really kind of there's just so much happening right now in this New England kind of scene, including with you. I feel like there's just names that I hear all the time.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily in emo stuff. It's because of your stuff as well. I hear about Jimmy Montague and the various projects that you're involved in. It's your web of influence is because you're a no sleep motherfucker, it's you're involved in so much that's why I was really happy that Side One wanted to put me in touch with you. This is just so cool to learn everything.
Yeah, I just Stoff from Carpool lives down the street from me, so I can walk to his apartment, and these are just kids that I've known for a number of years, being in bands and stuff. You stick around long enough, and the people who stay and keep working. So you just find people that you share a sort of work ethic with, and I mean, if you've kept going long enough, then I guess you're still here. So
totally. Did you record the stuff for Pretty Rude at Two Worlds?
No, that was at a studio in New Hampshire where I was living before this.
Okay, killer. Now, was there anything specific about that studio? This Pretty Rude record is so. I don't know. It feels so specific. The maximalism is so specific. The piano work, the vocals. There's all this stuff that even just arrangement. Was there anything if you were being particular? Was there anything about that studio that you wanted to make sure that it had, or why you picked it?
So I was living up in New Hampshire at the time, and I had moved my gear into a studio with Eric Sauter, who runs a studio called Blackheart in Manchester, New Hampshire. and it's a great studio. He's a great engineer. I've worked with him and, for him and alongside him for a number of projects during the time that I was living up there. And I just like by nature of how I've been, because I'm always moving around, I jump into these studios I don't know how the other engineers feel about it, but like I jump into these studios and I sort of just start moving shit around, bringing stuff in, and like bringing pianos in, like we brought in a Hammond B3 into the studio together, like just started reorganizing the flow, moving new amps, new gear, new pianos, new keys, new everything in. And like I was there for maybe close to 2 years. And because it was like sort of a shared like group at the time, I was able to just like kind of organize it to not my specifics, but just something that felt very comfortable and something that felt like had everything that we all needed. So when we started making the record, we had unlimited time there. We had all of our equipment, all of our amps, everything that we liked, everything that the other engineers liked. We had a pretty crazy selection of keys and organs and just real gear that we all loved. So it just felt very calm, very good. There wasn't like a crazy overhead. I mean, outside of owning the gear and paying for the gear, like that was a record that we made on our own time. So it wasn't like we had to foot the bill for it.
Totally.
I mean, you foot the bill in other ways, like I've lost an obscene amount of money, like for this gear and for this equipment and stuff. So it's not like it's freeloading, but we got to make that record at our own pace, which was nice.
I think that is like, I think that the love and the passion and the time really is conveyed. I think there's just something complicated and interesting, not only just from the arrangements in the forms that you use, but like it just feels like that this was like this has been a passion project from you.
Yeah, I don't know. I started writing those songs, like the first two probably came in 2021. And then I just started chipping away over the years. And, I got busy with other projects, other tours. Taking Meds took front seat for a while. And so I wasn't in any rush. And before side one expressing interest, I was just like, I don't know, this will come out when it comes out.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with, the ability to like, you actually used all 24 hours of your day to like actually be able to chip away at things. And when the Taking Meds record came out, I feel like that was like, that was the first time I heard of, Jimmy, James, this whole thing. That was just first of all, that record is great. Like seriously, front to back. Like I love that record. It made my top 20. No,
nice.
Seriously, it's you and our old band are the only two people that I know within that year that used phones on their record. So, So I think about y'all's record so much because of just like that shot that y'all used. That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean that was a really fun record to make, and it was also it was the first like actual recording I had done with Skylar and Ben and Noah. And just, the way that Skylar and Ben write is so crazy, and, they're amazing musicians. And I love the lyrics that Skylar writes. All of his music is like some of my favorite stuff ever. And I was a fan of Meds long before I joined Meds.
Totally.
And the recording process for that, I wrote my bass parts and I wrote some of the keys and some of the other auxiliary stuff, and I helped with vocals and stuff. But, that's largely a Skylar and Ben record.
Totally.
And I remember getting the demos from them. And like I make really bad demos myself, But that was the first time that, Skylar had sent me demos where I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was so like, I would say this to them, but like, I was so skeptical of it when I heard the demos. And the minute we started recording it, I was like, oh, I hear how you're hearing this now.
Okay,
like,
cool. That's so funny.
The translation was not there from these demos. Like he was recording vocals just like screaming into his laptop in the car. It was pretty haggard.
I love that.
That was a really fun process of putting that record together, and I had a lot of fun recording it. We did all the instrumentals at God City, where I've worked with Zach countless times, and that was my first time working with Kurt actually, which was great. And then we took it back to that same studio, Blackheart in New Hampshire, finished the vocals, finished the keys, finished some auxiliary acoustic stuff, and it was God, it already feels like a lifetime ago.
I know, right? Like that was 2024. Like, just is it a year?
I think it was 2023.
It's 2023. It doesn't feel like, I know, like it feels like it's been so long.
Yeah.
It's been just a long, like 24 months anyways, but like you kind of have this thing where there's what made you want to start kind of living in studios?
I mean, when I was young, starting out in bands, no one in the band gave a shit about like, oh, we should be like finding a way to listen back to this, what we're doing. We should find a way to like hear this practice. So everyone was just like, yeah, sounds great. So like from the off the cuff, I was always the person who was like, oh, I found this like really shitty like handheld thing. Like I'll just put it in the middle of the room and then we can listen back to it at the end. I want to hear that back. And then just over the years, like Zach and I had this long talk. Zach Weeks, he's the other engineer at God City. I've worked with Zach for a number of years. But Zach and I recently had this talk that him and I had like really, really almost exactly the same gear trajectories as kids, which was like some weird handheld thing, then like some weird digital hybrid workstation that we would plug into the back of our computer's like headphone jack and bounce it into like really early forms of Audacity. We had like consumer grade cassette deck speakers that like our parents might have, had like maybe one or two channels of inputs that you could plug like a really bad microphone into and record straight to cassette, but just like only one microphone with no mixer or anything.
Oh, wow.
And like we just had very similar ways of like, oh, we're playing in bands as kids, we should be finding ways to record what we're doing. And so, from there, I just always started amassing, gear, but crap. Just to be able to record these things. And then in high school, I was the kid making the EPs for our bands. I was, I went to college for audio engineering. Huge mistake. But I went to college for audio engineering and was the kid who had access to studio time. So my friends' bands would come to college with me and cut a track. And then I just started buying the things from the studio that I liked. So if I like tried a bunch of microphones and I was like, oh, I like this, then I would use my money from restaurants to buy a microphone. I would buy a preamp. I would, I've had many different iterations of a rig. And then, the hardest part, I've worked in so many, like I interned for, so many people in New England over the years and took little pieces of them that I liked, or, gear that I liked, or just the way that they worked, or the way that they composed themselves, or the way that they handled things. And I just sort of, like anyone does, created my own way of doing things that I feel comfortable with. And I've started and stopped so many studios over my life. For a while, I had a mobile rig where I was doing it out of my car, and I was driving to people's like practice spaces in Connecticut and setting up like just really haggard backwoods crap. And I've torn down and opened up and worked out of so many studios over the last few years of my life that it's just, I don't know, feels natural, I guess. Just feels like I'm constantly doing it. So
do you see yourself like, I feel like there's a lot of there's this weird like two sides of the coin where part of making music is this spontaneity thing, where like you kind of live in this moment where it's like, okay, cool, here's the studio, here's this gear. There's a lot of impulse when it comes to like making music and things like that. But there's also a lot of planning, but the planning part happens like after this music is made, and then you're booking tours, and there's the longevity stuff of that. Would you say that you like living on the impulse side of things or on the planning side of things?
The minute this work is done, I lose my fucking mind. The minute the minute the thing is accomplished and now we have a year to roll something out, I just go crazy. I hate it so much. I hate the planning. I hate the meetings. I hate the what if we did that? Just make a decision and fucking tell me, because I can't bring myself to do it. I don't know. I've never been in one place long enough to like get comfortable, which I don't mind. I've just like, I really hate the like hemming and hawing. Like you just make a decision. I feel like I've gotten very good at being like, this is what we have, this is what we don't have. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. Let's go. I can get it organized. I know I can do what needs to be done. I think I make a very good project manager.
Yeah.
But the minute the thing is done, I either unravel or I just have to like let someone else do it.
Do you find yourself like, is that a reason why you got into photography, where it's just like, oh, I have to at least like have my hands on something in between things where I can like go do that?
It definitely helps. It also keeps me off my phone in the studio, which is nice because I'm addicted to my phone and I love my phone. But I had been doing photography. I mean, to call it photography is like a little bit much because
photography. It's not even lowercase p photography.
Sure, but it's like, I started doing that when I was in high school. I guess I just have always had a thing for documenting things, but like same thing with the recording thing. Like if my bands were playing or if people were around, I was going to take pictures so that I had like, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, like documentation of what we were doing, what was happening, what was going on at the time, who was around. Like I always really liked the physical, not proof, but like, just something. And I'm not a nostalgic person, so it's not like I look back on these photos like, oh, like I wish I could go back. Like it's just
totally.
I just like archive. Like I'm very into archival work, and like my favorite people have some sense of archive to them, and it's just something that's always interested me. And like growing up as a music fan, I was always annoyed that there wouldn't be more photos of. Like there's endless concert photos, just huge masturbatory archives of bands playing in front of thousands of people. Like, okay, cool. Congratulations.
Yes.
What I want to see is people in the studio making the records, making the music, because that's what I care about. I could give a shit that they're playing in front of, people at Woodstock. I want to see how the sausage was made. So like, I always gravitated towards, photo archival work. And I just was like, oh, I don't see anyone doing it, so I guess I'll fucking do it. There's a lot of that attitude is, well, no one else is going to fucking do the work, so I guess I'll do it.
I love that so much.
That's sort of how I got into doing studio photography. And I feel like bands appreciate it, or like sometimes they wouldn't have thought about it, or they were like, yeah, we just didn't want to like hire a person to bring them in because, fuck that. And I'm like, cool, I'll just take some pictures while I'm sitting here.
That's fucking sick. I like the archival thing. I think is I think that's why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place, is because like, you know, I found that all these bands that, you know, I didn't jump into band stuff, music stuff. Like, I've been playing music my whole life, but I always felt that like I couldn't do it. I don't know what was stopping me. I was surrounded by like incredible musicians that were doing all that stuff. So I was like, you guys do that. I'm not good enough. It's fine. And so like I didn't jump into any of this stuff until I was like 31. And like I've been doing this like 6 years now. And so what the fascinating thing for me is that after I joined all this stuff, there was a lack of people like the archival stuff for this low end stuff. It only exists at like these, you know, higher mid-level bands upwards. And so like it's very annoying. It's very annoying to see like they're not documenting all this stuff. So like, is that
it's a lot of work for bands that not that many people care about. And so a lot of people don't want to do it because they're like, oh, what's the fucking point? You know, it can be super depressing. Like,
totally.
I get super depressed thinking about all the work that goes into this shit for stuff that no one really cares about. But at the same time, like, if you only start archival work when a band is already successful, then you've missed so much of the early years. Then what's the point? It's not interesting to hear about like when they were already famous. It's what people are always looking for is these sort of origin stories of bands, of musicians, of whatever. And that's the place where they're always lacking because people don't want to do the work if no one's already famous. So like, it's this sort of weird situation that like you either have to be taking photos of everyone or documenting everything, or you're not gonna get it when something truly starts. And I get it, you know. I mean, it's hard to care about something that doesn't have any pop.
Yeah. It's like, listen, the input output is off. It's like, listen, I'm going to put a bunch of effort into this thing that's just like going to be just posted on Instagram, which is also a weird like dilution of the whole thing in the first place. Where you'll post things on Instagram, but like I always imagine this stuff to like to be coffee table book shit. Like that's what I'm looking for. Like I want the physical copy of like, hey, here's 2018 to 2023 bands in the studio, like two worlds. Like, you know, there's got to be like this cool, there's a quality thing that I'm into as well.
We're working on a book for this year at Two Worlds. Like that was one of the first things that Billy and I wanted to do when I started taking pictures in there, was just like, hey, these are photos of every band that came into the studio. I'm working on like a compiled interview with all of them. I basically I would take photos of their session, and like just from hanging around and hearing conversation, I would sort of put together like tiny questionnaires based on maybe things that we talked about while we were in the studio. I don't like giving everyone the same question stuff. It gets kind of boring. So like trying to spice it up, tried to be serious without being too serious, and like we're putting together a book for that, which is fun. But like before I started working at Two Worlds, I was making like zines for, like I did a zine for the Taking Meds record for Dial M. I did a zine for the Camp Trash record that we just finished. The zine thing has been fun, although I'm just losing money left and right making them.
Like
so stupid.
What is it? I don't know what it is that's so attractive about it. Maybe it's just because like the 90s are back or something like that. But like the physical, everything is going back into physical stuff right now.
It's because it's impossible to find anything on streaming. You try to watch fucking Ocean's 11 and it's on like some weird thing that you have to pay money for. It just sucks. Like I think everyone is coming back around to that. Although I feel like that's been the sentiment for a long time, is just, everyone in our demographic and scene has always been like physical media. So I don't think it's a relatively new thing, but I think with the death of music publications in the last few years, a lot of independent zines are coming back, which is really cool. Like I shot some photos for my friend Miranda's zine. Do I have a copy here?
Oh, sick.
Miranda does a zine called Portable Model out of Chicago.
Fuck yeah.
I've shot photos for the last 2 issues, and we're working on like a piece. I think I'm going to do a piece for the 3rd issue where I go around to other engineers and producers in the Northeast and photograph them in their spaces and sort of interview them about what makes their space like conducive to them. And so I think we're working on stuff for that. But like just this run of independent zines has sort of come back as like a way to combat the fact that like Pitchfork and all these places are getting bought up by fashion magazines and shit. Like, I don't know, just everyone, I feel like I keep hearing like people talk about the fact that we're about to hit a digital dark age where stuff you thought would always survive online is going to start disappearing.
I agree.
And I think that having physical prints of anything is a good thing. But it's fucking expensive. I'm losing my fucking hat over these stupid little photo zines. But I keep doing them, so I guess it doesn't matter.
No, it does matter because I think that you're absolutely right. Like, you know, there's, you know, what's a weird thing that there's all these things that you don't actually own is, you know, owned by something else, and you're just getting the license to this and license to that. Like, it's happening in video games, it's happening in music, it's happening in movies. Like, I think that there's like there's just something about maybe that there's always a look to the past whenever there's like a massive stress, you know, cultural stress, where, you know, I think that I've seen more VHS camera style footage from things like that's
a thing that's popping up right now. A lot of bands, because now that these little DVs, I mean, I can never remember the quote. I probably have used it before, but like someone says, like once you make it past a point in technology that you fix the flaws of the previous model, then the flaws are what people want to see. Like once you know you can fix the flaw, then like so now that we've moved past DVs to this like really high quality thing, now the look of DV that was once like too shoddy, too unprofessional, too like close to good but not actually good, like now that is being sought after. So now I see like every band I know is using DVs, little handheld Sonys.
It's awesome.
Not only is it great and looks cool and looks fun, they're fun to use, but it's so fast for turnover. Like bands are using them on tour because you can, if you get a little rig together, you can bounce it directly to your computer and however long the footage is. It doesn't matter if it looks that great, so you don't have to spend too much time color grading it. And then you can put together these promotional things so fast, so cheap. The DV thing is coming back in a huge way. I've already seen, you know, every band that I've seen in the last couple of years is using them. So it's only a matter of time before every band has it, and then it's blown out, and then we're doing something else. But, you know.
It's crazy. Like I bought one. I was like, listen, I'll buy a $50 thing. Like I saw that and I was like, I have a camera now that just fits in my fucking pocket that just takes exactly, you know, VHS footage. Like there's so many people that are doing like this thing, man. It's just so interesting to see the sine wave come back into rock and roll, VHS, fucking big pants. Like there's, it's all so strange. It's fun to watch it.
It's cool. I definitely feel like the older I get, the faster these cycles have for turnaround time.
Yes.
And when you start to become attuned to like, oh, I see one person doing this, I bet I'm going to see a lot more in like a month. And then like that, everyone's fucking on the tip. And, you know, some things I can be like, that's whack. But like for the most part, it's just like, you know, you see a trend, it happens, you either feel like you want to be involved or you don't, and you just let it pass, and then it comes and goes. Like this DV trend, I think, is going to be like super oversaturated in the next 6 months. But
totally, it'll be over.
But at the same time, like, it's productive and it's helpful, and like, I also think it saves bands money. So like, fuck it, I'm not gonna be pissy and be like, oh, like I saw so many people doing DV like 6 months ago. Like, I don't care. That's a trend where I'm like, hey, this is working. Let's everyone use it until it's no longer cool. And then when it's no longer cool, you can find something else. But I don't really have a gripe with the DV trend. I think it's probably a pretty positive one.
Yeah, on an economic, like, cultural, and even just like, it is 100%. It is just, you're like, outside of rendering and color grading and all that stuff, everyone just wants that thing to look like. Anyways, I wonder where it started. There's probably got to be some band did a video that looked like that, and everyone's like, "Yo, wait, we could do that for cheap."
Yeah,
it's you can always trace that stuff back, but it requires documentation. That is the best.
Well, that's the other thing is, like, you know, regardless of what it is, people are filming more of themselves, and that's great. And I just wish. Like, unfortunately, the stuff that looks the coolest right off the bat is shows. So you're seeing this used for a lot of shows. It's just me as a person, I could give a fuck about shows. So, like, totally. I don't care. I wish it was being used more in the studio. But then you get into this thing where, like, so many people are making records at home that the studio might not look as glamorous as, like, going into a professional studio. So I get why some people are like, I don't want to film my bedroom. Like, I don't want to film, like, me in fucking Adidas slides. But I get it. But at the same time, like, I still would rather see that than shows stuff.
There's something about the kinetic energy on this VHS DV style thing that is just like, you know, it looks, especially if edited well and shot with like a person with like a good hand trying to do almost like the gorilla thing. It can it can look interesting, but you're right. It's going to get fucking boring. I mean,
that's the other thing is, like, as everyone sees with any sort of trend, like, everyone will do it, but there are going to be people who are very good at doing it. And there are people that, like, can use a tool like a DV and come at it with a director's mindset and knows what they want to see, knows how they want to use the tool. And it's not just a tool for fast fashion. It can be a tool that can be utilized in a very creative. You can use something like a DV very creatively, and you can use it to make quality art and something that would stand the test of time, as opposed to just like a filter on an Instagram thing. Like, it can like, I can imagine, like, some of those, like that Wilco documentary, the one where they're making Yankee Hotel, like, that was definitely filmed on some sort of DV, but it's got narrative. It's got great camera direction. You can watch that. It's a movie. You know what I mean? Like, so people can use these tools as if you have skill or have some sort of creative endeavor for it, and you're not just using it fucking waving it around crazy. Like, it can be a super helpful thing.
There's a taste thing where it's just 1,000,000%. I think that it's just like, you know, it's also the issue with accessibility, which is the bell curve of people that use it in a way where, like, that small percentage on the right of that bell curve are going to be the people that, like, oh, I know how to technically use this, I know how to artistically use this, but the majority of people will be using it for, like, you know, this you know, mid to low quality thing that, you know, because everyone's still just learning. That's so. What do you think is, like, I like the thing that you said, like, fuck shows. Like, there's just something so funny about that. Like, are you just more of I want to just write and play the studio, this whole thing for the rest of my life? If you never had to tour again, would that be, like, the thing?
Well, it definitely comes from an attitude of someone who has only played bad shows his entire career. I'm sure I wouldn't be saying fuck shows if I was playing in front of thousands of people every night. So it comes from a very jaded and very defeated person. I mean, you could probably hear it in my voice.
Yeah.
But, like, this attitude of fuck shows and stuff is, like, it also comes from, like, work to yield ratio is so insane. like you got to play a one-off and you've got to have rehearsals for fucking a week. You got to do all this work. You got to get all this gear to a place. You got to drive 16 hours to some fucking place. You got to sit in a green room for 14 hours. You got to wait for your set. Then you got to play 25 minutes and then you got to drive it all home. And then you got to do it again for another thing. And like maybe you're lucky and you're on tour and so the yield is a little bit higher, but like it's just so much work for so little that the workaholic in my brain is like, well, that doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Then you do all this work and you play in front of fucking 20 people, and you know, God bless those 20 people, but at 31, I just fucking, you know, it's too depressing.
I love it. You're 100% correct in like the input output of like, and like the guarantee of this becoming like the thing that you get to do for the rest of your life is just like so fucking slim anyways. It's just like, you know, everyone's chasing the dragon.
Not everyone gets to win. So it's like, I don't know. I play these shows and it's like an unfortunate part of what you have to do.
Sure.
If you want to. I mean, like most of the people that I've met is from playing shows and that's great and all, but, I don't know if I could just do, like I've constantly toyed with this in my head and like it's a big impasse that I've never been able to fully get through. But could I do this if no one was listening? I like whenever I make something, whenever I make anything, the first instinct I have is to show it to someone.
Yeah.
So like, could I do this for just myself? Probably not, you know? But how much embarrassment can I take for the rest of my life? Like, how much more can I put stuff out and like have it only reach 5-10 people? Like, it just gets to a point, and I've said this in so many other ways, but like, I don't know, when you reach this age and this step in music and whatever, like the only friends you have left are other musicians. Like, you've weeded out all the people that you're not going to have similar interest in. I'm not playing video games with people online. I'm not going out to the bars. I'm not like if I'm doing this, I'm doing it. So the only friends I have left in this world are other musicians. And unfortunately, unfortunately for me, many of my friends are successful musicians. So like, I just can't do, it's exhausting to play these shows to nobody and to have to like justify so many other things that you're putting off in your life for that. And
totally get that.
You know, having conversations with people where it's going well for them and then they're like, oh, you gotta keep, I check out. Out and it becomes a very point. It's like a very jaded point for me. I understand that. And I understand that I can be a negative person about that. But, you know, I try to tell myself that I'm more invested in the studio part and that I should just focus more on the recording part and everything. And I try to. But an unfortunate component of this is you have to play shows. Yeah. Like we're gonna have to do stuff for this Pretty Rude stuff to promote it because music is like maybe 17% of the equation now.
Fuck yeah. And like I think people are going to really fuck with this Pretty Rude record. Like I am, my tastes are like all across the board too. So I think that there's something that y'all are doing with this record that's like this, you know, again, pop, soul, rock, indie. There's just so many things that like you touch on in this record that is just cast such a fucking wide net that I think people really are with all the 3 singles that are out anyways. So it's still really exciting. But listen, I want to play a song from that record. We won't have to. I'll edit this out and we'll just play it. What song would you like to hear on the record? Do you want to do something that's already been released, or you can pick a song if you would like?
I mean, because it was the last one written and because it pertains to a lot of what we talked about today, I think that The Work is like my favorite song on the record.
I completely agree. I was going to ask if we could play The Work.
I do think that at the moment hits the hardest home for me and definitely says a lot about where I'm at these days. So
fuck yeah.
That song I think is just cool that has a solo at the end by Tommy from Carpool. I actually like that track. So
okay. All right. Here's the work by Pretty Rude.
I wasn't ready to be done. I wasn't ready to be set and spun thick up. And Nathan never truly knows. I wasn't ready to be done. If I could take my own advice, I'd aim once and shoot twice. 'Cause there ain't no relief when you're on ice. Wish I could take my own advice. I'd say don't believe a word. You're only as good as the next day. 'Cause I'm the wreck when the work's all done. I'm just a mess, no fun. Yeah, I'm a wreck when the work's all done. I should have been an athlete, I should have been a jock, a finely tuned machine, a brain from aftermarket stock. I should have been an actor, empty vessel made of clay, but the hands of my director moved me spitefully to say, yeah, oh shit, I wasn't ready to be sad and spun and fixed up, and Nathan never truly knows. I wasn't ready to be done. When the work's all done, I'm just a mess, no fun. Yeah, I'm a wreck when the work's all done. I'm just a mess, no fun. Just watch me.
That was the work by Pretty Rude. Dog, James, Jimmy. It was a fucking pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Hell yeah. So do your thing. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you as well.
All right, hell
care.
yeah. See ya.
See ya.